Welcome back. Today we're talking politics, and we're back with Professors Hassami, Thompson, and Smith. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming back. Let's get back to the education topic. Is there still going to be a No Child Left Behind policy?
I stand by my answer. Campaign promises are campaign promises, but I don't think they don't like, Obama's himself likes the No Child Left Behind. Charter schools he likes. Yeah. I mean, it's a question of funding.
In favor of charter schools.
Yes, it's properly funding, yeah. Right, and probably some tweaking. I think there were some issues with application of the testing, special needs students, bilingual students who are, and certain school systems were being punished to some degree just because they had a preponderance of students in those categories with that test. So you might see some flexibility built into the testing system. But yeah, I think No Child Left Behind is going to stay.
During the campaign, Obama talked quite a bit about his mother being ill and some of the troubles that she had with the healthcare system.
Indeed.
What should we expect? What's realistic given the economy? I guess it always comes back to that.
Well, I think this may sound a little shocking, but I think the model comes from actually a Republican, Mitt Romney, because up in Massachusetts, Mitt Romney passed the health care reform bill, and it basically requires people to have some form of health insurance.
But there's not 45 million people in Massachusetts.
There weren't, but there were about 13 million when it went into effect in Massachusetts, and they've already got the number of uninsured down to I'm sorry, it's 13% of the total population, not 13 million. 13%, and it's down to around 7% now. So they've already cut in half the number of people in Massachusetts who are uninsured. Okay. And basically, there's penalties for companies. If they don't provide insurance, they still have to pay into a pool that helps pay for people who can't afford the health insurance. So people who are poor enough get subsidized. People who can pay have to pay. Companies that don't pay have to pay. And I think that's a model that they're going to be looking at, probably with some, of course, some changes once it gets through the legislation process, but I think they're going to be looking at that, something like that.
I just want to make a general comment. The campaign promises, again, with the economy, you have to make tough choices. And I think that people are more sophisticated these days to understand that the legislative process and the reality on the ground will determine how much of these promises you are going to hold him responsible for. Does he have 4 years? Does he have 8 years? Does he have to have the intention to do it? And the reality on the ground is that if you keep going, and the deficit is one of the main reasons that the Republicans are out of favor, and fiscal responsibility, then these questions of education, healthcare, fixing the economy, bailout, not to mention clean air, not to mention, again, stem cell research, all of these are related, and therefore, to what degree you want to hold the promise to the reality, that's
well,
a question.
I agree with your point about the promise and reality, but I think that the sell for health insurance is actually an investment, because I think that there are companies out there who would love to see a larger pool of, or not have to take on the burden of issuing health care for their employees. And I think that there's a lot of people out there who would take the opportunity, if we had some kind of more or a better distributed healthcare system, you would see fewer people. We should see fewer people in emergency care. We should see people taking care of things before they become full-blown illnesses. So if you sell it as an investment.
But they have to invest in it before they can look at the long-term preventive care or even services. Initially, it will cost the taxpayers in terms of the cost for the first period.
But taxpayers are willing to endure deficits if they think the money's being spent wisely.
Right.
The deficits that were run up during the Bush administration did not come from any great spending on health care, roads, bridges, environmental cleanup, green economy. If it would be like the New Deal, as you said earlier, you would have the government coming in and spending money, and people seeing results right away. And healthcare, and that gets also to the globalization issue, which was what you touched on, which is American companies have to compete with foreign companies whose healthcare is covered by foreign governments. Now, if America wants to compete with those, if American companies want to compete with those foreign companies, maybe the government should help shoulder the burden of the health care of those employees.
I just don't know what it would do to small businesses, and I think that economic uncertainty and speculation is one thing. What it will do to small businesses in terms of carrying the burden, in terms of tax credit or initial investment. the point of this is that when you have a laundry list already with the Democratic House and Democratic Senate, the fact that the pork barrel, and by the time these legislations get through the Congress, it will cost the taxpayers. My question is just to raise the to bring the expectation down to earth, to tell the people what it was promised and what will come out of it. It's not always the same. That's all.
It's true.
Let's talk about something that doesn't